What is up, guys? Welcome to a new video. Today is something I find kind of interesting, and I haven't ever really figured out a way to do a video about it before. Basically, it's like champions that are extremely good and reliable for solo queue, but are just rarely banned. I look at stat websites a lot for my videos, and there are always these same champions that are doing consistently well, but nobody really seems to think they're worth a ban or that much trouble, I guess, even though when statistically at least, they have some of the biggest impacts. I'm honestly still not sure if this is the exact format I like either, but this is a different and interesting way to look at the game, I think. So throw the video a like if you do. Let me know what you think of this and whether maybe it's worth doing more of these in the future. Just so you know what I mean, if we think about the common bans right now, Zed, Hecarim, LeBlanc, Zyra, these all have a few things in common. So they have a very obvious impact. Normally this is with their damage, they're going to kill people a lot. They have an early impact as well, which can snowball a lead out of control. They're kind of oppressive in a way, hard to play against, and they often really punish mistakes. Those are great things to have, but that attention is going to attract bans and changes from right. In the long run, you'll have to adapt and find new champions. The thing is, it also feels more rewarding to play those champions anyway because you feel like you're doing more and actually the impact is very obvious. So the idea of this video though is to look at the ones who are different to that, less obvious and aren't banned as much, but statistically are most reliable and probably do deserve a ban. So these are just going to be some of my picks that actually fit this idea, and we're going to start with the one that fits it the most really, and that is Janna. She has one of the highest win rates, especially above gold, consistently very strong, and yet she never ever gets banned. To be honest, her win rate is actually even better than it looks on good players. A lot of people play Janna because they enjoy being carried, and that's not the best playstyle at all for ranked, but a lot also play her because they can do a lot of work, and those are the ones with insane win rates. Her impact is not going to be obvious at all. I think that's the main reason why she's rarely going to be looked at. Like the shield in lane, it's just kind of seen as defense, right? But it actually has a ton of AD on it, and trades are going to hurt a lot more with it. The Q knockup is a defensive way to get away, sure, but time it right, and you can actually also interrupt basically any dash ability. Lee Sin Q, Jarvan combo, Zac jump, you're cancelling the damage part of them as well as the gap closer. Even your passive, right? Most people probably won't know that it speeds up allies moving towards her. They might just be kind of semi-aware of it, but your ultimate, the knockback is nice, but it's only the simple version. It's going to interrupt anything just like your tornado does. Time it right and you can prevent damage in the first place, plus you have the heal. At rank 3 it's going to be 600 plus 150% of her AP. Add in the extra sensor or crucible healing plus wind speakers and it heals for a ton in a fight to everyone around her. All of these things are actually amazing when you use them correctly, but they often aren't, or it's just not really obvious, I guess. Like for the Lee Sin who got his Q interrupted, it's obvious, but he might be a bit salty actually. But even then, he probably doesn't realize just how much impact that had on the fight, or how the healing saved everyone in a late game fight. Just looking purely at stats, if you're in Plat or Diamond, Janna is one of the best bans you can actually have at the moment. Her game impact over like 100 games is way higher than most. Soraka is actually very similar to Janna as well, but a bit more obvious. Her heals have way more noticeable impact, especially in skirmishes with like 2 or 3 people in them. Once you get to team fights, you're probably not going to realize just how much influence she actually has on the outcome of the fight unless you look back on it. But trust me, unless you kill her, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. Her ultimate, her heal, her silence, all of these things can have a really big impact in a game and make it very difficult to beat her. The only reason I'm not going into more detail about her now is because a lot of people have started to ban her again, and rightfully so. She's super strong. Sion is another one like this, but just in a different way. So tanks rarely get the glory anyway, but especially not Sion because he rarely is the one killing someone. He does have some decent damage, but it's more about being as annoying as possible. Like he lasts so long in a fight, which is more useful than you think it is. It gives your team time to go through their front line and move forward onto the carries. Sion is naturally very tanky anyway, but he kind of forces the enemies to move around constantly. He prevents them from doing damage in the first place, which keeps him alive even longer. The Q is either going to knock you up or you're going to have to move to avoid it. The ultimate knock up the shield from his W, and even once he actually dies, they have to run backwards away from his passive and waste even more time. Those things really in a fight don't seem like a ton. He's not actually killing anyone, right? He's not doing the damage. He's not directly carrying. Even now you might be thinking I've smoked something before this video, but having that much time when their carries are distracted makes everything so much easier. In a lot of ways, it's the same with Maokai, to be honest. He survives a very long time, stacks defensive items, and becomes a real pain in the ass to deal with. The champions top lane that are banned right now are like Darius, Irelia, Yasuo, right? These guys hard carry a game with damage. They are the ones killing people, and they usually snowball a lead from the lane phase. Even when a Sion or Maokai is fed, they don't kill you that quickly. They just don't die, and that is something that is less obvious. You're less likely to come out of a game and think, wow, that Sion just carried because we could never kill him. Jinx is one of these, but actually, again, in a very different way. She does a lot of sustained damage over a period of time, and even though she's one of the best and most reliable AD carries right now, she is not getting very much attention. Part of it, I think, is the lack of burst damage and the acceptance that she is a late game carry, so we kind of already expect it. The expectation is there that she's not exactly going to dumpster people early and burst you down in fights. It will take some time, giving the perception you actually have a chance to do things even if you don't. The fact that it takes her so long into a game is another thing. Like, normally banned champions snowball very hard. They're the ones that take over the game early and crush it before anyone gets a chance to do anything. Jinx does more like mid to late game. I think she hits her item breakpoints and then starts to snowball. That makes it seem like the game was going fine and then kind of just slipped away from you or you threw it, rather than Jinx is actually just insanely strong and took it over. Auto-attacking AD carries are a lot like this, to be honest. Normally ADs only attract bans when they start to burst people and are difficult to play against when they solo carry games without any reliance on their team like Lucian did or Kalista back in the day. Jinx is very much more reliant on her team and an actual team fight. Like, when you're full on 5-on-5, it's much harder to pinpoint exactly who was the one doing the most damage and won the fight. Basically, even though everyone understands that Jinx can carry and is pretty good, people think they can deal with her and nobody thinks she's overpowered or too strong, even when her win rate suggests that actually she might be. Ashe and Jhin are other AD carries who fit this kind of idea this patch, but are just way more popular. They aren't really as quiet about their carrying, I guess, but they aren't banned at all despite being the best the role has to offer. To be honest, they are close to the level Lucian was on before. I know it sounds weird, but they actually are super good. They carry in much different ways though. Lucian did it with damage, right? He just killed everyone, but right now Ashe and Jhin both have a ton of damage. They are doing it with their utility as well, which is what I think gives the impression it's not just them. The thing is, even if you camp an Ashe or a Jhin early, they can still carry with their roots and arrows, locking people down and helping their team to do more. That is what gives them such a high win rate, the being able to be effective from behind and consistently climb. Ashe is definitely worth a ban right now statistically. Jhin also once you get to platinum, maybe even gold. Looking at the mid lane, most of the bans are against difficult to play champions and high damage ones like LeBlanc, Azir, Zed, Fizz. Their impacts are very obvious. That's what gets them banned in the first place, right? They can snowball a game out of control. Victor is kind of obvious in a way. At least most people know he's strong, but he's not really banned very much, even though he can have a very big impact in the game. Annie and Anivia are going to be the two I want to focus on for this video though. Annie gets like no attention right now despite having very solid win rate and a consistent one too. She's been good for months now. She might actually be borderline ban worthy to me. There are things you can do to beat her which make her manageable, but at the same time she'll be a consistent pain in the ass game after game. Her lane phase is solid. She can roam well with her ultimate. She has a lot of kill potential, but I think part of it is just how much Tibbers actually does. Tibbers really hurts in a team fight now. You have the initial burst, but after that it's going to keep on whacking you, which is really not fun to deal with. Even talking about her now, I'm kind of actually doubting myself, you know, like, do I really want to say this? Is she really that good right now? But statistically, yes, she is. She's a powerhouse in every elo, very reliable, which is perfect for making a climb. She's not exactly as much of a one-shot champion anymore, and I think that has a lot to do with it, but she's simple, easy to play, and easy to have an impact with, and can carry games. Anivia is one that is a bit different. We all know she's good right now, but I don't think we realize just how good, to be honest. Her base damage is through the roof. She scales with items well as well, and I think actually she could be the best mid laner right now if you actually want to carry games and climb. Like, she'll fit into any comp, she'll do well in any situation, and stand a chance to carry. Considering she has a very consistent win rate and how much impact she can have whether ahead or behind, she can easily slot into a ban-worthy champion this patch. It's a little less obvious just because it's quite cooldown based, I think. Like, she does damage and has to wait a while before doing it again. I mean, when she one-shots you, if she gets that fed, you'll realize just how broken she is, but that period of time actually makes it seem less deadly. Her egg is actually another thing as well, just makes her super safe. You have to kill her twice, and yes, it's annoying to deal with anyway, but it's also the time you have to spend to actually kill her. Even if you do, that's time you could have spent killing someone else, and that could have cost you the fight. Finally, if we look at junglers, ban trends tend to follow the highest impact gank heavy champions, ones who don't die or kill you. Hecarim, Kha'Zix, Rengar, Volibear, these all fit that pretty well. They have an obvious impact in the game, except actually Volibear took a long time to start getting banned. If I had done this video a few weeks ago, he would have definitely been on here. He kind of fits his idea perfectly. A champion that has consistently an insane win rate but carries in a lot of less obvious ways. It took much longer to realize what a pain in the arse he was. Amumu is one that no matter what patch this is, no matter what elo, you could put him in this video and it would make a lot of sense. Amumu has this perception of being weak early, heavy crowd control, and that's all he can do. That's what I think most people think when they see him in a game. Actually, his weak early game is not as bad anymore in Season 6. He can actually gank effectively and do a bunch of damage. Yes, he can be invaded, but it's not going to be as easy as you think it is. Part of why people don't give him as much respect is because he starts to kick into gear in the mid game when you've already been playing a while, and like, he hasn't camped you or shut you down or anything like that. He's not like so oppressive, I guess. His ultimate is obviously really strong, but people underestimate how effective it is to lock multiple people down and stop them doing anything. It's hard to see what the fight could have been if that didn't happen. It's not necessarily about the ultimate either though. It's about what happens afterwards. The follow-up isn't necessarily Amumu either. It's his team. It makes it look like they did all the work, but really they couldn't have done any of that without him. Sejuani, maybe even Zac, is kind of the same deal here as well. Both very tanky, have damage packed into the kit naturally with base damage, and have good engage and crowd control. Amumu could definitely be ban worthy. Probably not these two as much, but they carry under the radar for sure. Just being able to engage is actually another thing that's really strong. Carries can't do any damage without a good engage. You have to actually pick a fight, catch people to make the game easier, and I guess most importantly, just not pick really bad fights. Even though you're probably not going to get very much credit for this, a good engage or picking a good fight is actually one skill that you can probably just carry all the way to diamond with, to be honest. As odd as it actually sounds, you can have pretty crap mechanics, you don't have to have the best lane phase or early game, but if you pick good fights and engage properly, then you can just let your team carry and do all the damage. That is a very underrated and underappreciated way of winning a game, and that's why I'd say that type of jungler does way more than you think it does. So that wraps up pretty much every role this patch, and I'm not entirely sure how I want to do these if I do more of them. Give me your feedback, let me know what you think, but for now, let's go to the robots.